All right, so we're live. As always, I'm having tech issues. That's no surprise, being in the middle of nowhere. And we're just going to roll with it. So today we're doing a special episode about the Humans First group. We have Deborah Abbott, Toni McLeod. I'm going to mess it up every time. I'm not even trying. Toni M, Gary Turner, and Mike Vacante. I want to start with Mike because Mike is the founder of Humans First, and I want him to give a little bit of background of his why that he even started this, and then everybody else can fill in around it because everybody has played such an role in being part of this. And I love the community, and I participate in the EMEA group as often as possible.
Well, thank you, Michael. Humans First Club started in October of 2018, and we got a group of people in a room together and simply asked the question, what's it like to be human in the workplace today? And what led to that was I was out working with companies and teams and facilitating them through processes of high achieving teams. And what I experienced in doing that is there were very few high achieving teams. Matter of fact, there were very few high functioning teams. And as we opened up the conversation of the elements that make a high achieving team and what are people's experiences, it was amazing to me just how hurting people were. And when you start to get into deep conversations and expose what's truly going on, it was very eye-opening, not only for the groups that we were in, but for the employer that had hired me to come in and do those sessions. And we know at the same time, we looked at the data, right? The Gallup information on engagement and, mental and physical health ramifications that were taking place in work. I was hearing so many stories of burnout and psychological turmoil that people were going through that it just led to the research project that this has all become of what are people really experiencing, and can we create an environment where we can not only express what's really going on, we can find each other and help each other move to a better state. And that's really what this is, Michael. It's a place where we build it for and with and because of each other, that it's something that really can't be owned, but through our experiences together, we learn how to share it, invite other people in. And what's taken place from that point with all the fabulous people that we're with today, Toni McLeod and Gary and Deborah, is people started coming to it from all over the world, sharing those experiences. And it's been a tremendous research and learning opportunity. But at the core, we just need to start taking better care of each other. And that's the sole premise, is we can do better in each relationship and each group simply by changing the way we approach relationships and care for each other.
And I think at its core, right, it's all about people. It's all about having those conversations, and you're holding these safe spaces for conversation. And while in 2018 everything was in person, right, we've learned that that's not the case anymore, or at least not as often. I feel like the virtual side of it has been able to make an impact. To be able to bring more global people together in every way in business, but I really feel in this way also, because I've met some phenomenal people globally through this group.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and there are phenomenal people. I'm just amazed every day that how lucky I am to be surrounded by brilliant people that I get a chance to hear and listen and learn from, and their willingness to be open and vulnerable as we go forward and explore the best possibilities ahead of us.
Yeah, it's very open, right? And I know from personal experience from being involved in the EMEA side, right? Because for some reason, even though I'm in the middle of nowhere, USA, and I've lived in the USA my whole life, I really got attracted to the EMEA group. And Toni, the way that Toni does things, she runs it like a tight ship, and she is the captain of it in a very tight way, to the way that she engages and brings everybody together,
Yes, and thank goodness for that,
everybody to be
because
involved.
yeah, that, and she does a brilliant job with that, and it's such a great balance, because I'm okay with everything just being in chaos, and Toni brings some structure and order, and I think that helps highlight the purpose. And again, I mean, it's so beautiful that everybody can bring their gifts and be who they are, and I think that's a great example. I'm certainly appreciative of Toni and her fairy dust that she brings and sprinkles across the world every week.
And who knows what form that's going to take, because sometimes it brings people out in song too, So, hey, if you missed yesterday's call, you would know what I'm talking about. We had some impromptu singing. And the thing about Humans First is, it's about how people embrace that time and what they do with the time that they are together. And we have so much intimate sharing. We have laughter. We have some real good connections. We have people going off and doing business together. And for me, there's a whole culmination of lots of different things. But centrally, what's so important is that now that this inclusive leadership is so popular now, and one of the buzzwords, you would never have thought that it had been around from the invention, of the dictionary or anything like that. It's just suddenly so popular. But one of the things is that we have to make sure that we are leading by example. We talk so much about psychological safety. We talk so much about what we need to be doing in our organizations. And so this call is about not only, talking the talk, but really walking the walk. What are we doing outside of this after we've had these conversations, and the ripple effect that it's taking, that is going on beyond that? So that's what's really important. And when we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's the piece that is essential to everything. And we have so many people from across the globe representing. When we had our global call last year, August, we had, I think, was it, Gary, 23 different languages that were spoken. That was just such a beautiful thing to be able. It was almost like a song, when people were saying what they were saying in their language. And I think that is testament to Humans First and connecting people across the globe. And one of the things that the unfortunate situation of COVID has brought us positively is that connection, and Humans First has created a great opportunity for people to come together. So thank you, Mike, Deborah, Gary, everything. I love being around you. I love the community, and it ignites me every time. Thank you.
So, Gary, I know that you're working on an initiative for this September. Why don't you go into a little bit about that and why you're involved? Because I know that you're a tremendous advocate for it, and I know that you through another group, which is Andrea Sanchez's worthiness rallies, and I know that Andrea is part of the EMEA group, and so on. So, why don't you talk a little bit, Gary, and give a little background on yourself and your why?
Thanks very much, Michael. Again, thanks for the invitation. What an amazing conversation to be part of. So I came across Mike back in, over 2 years ago now. Kevin Monroe introduced me to Mike, and it's just one of these beautiful examples, Michael, of serendipity plus excitement plus unbelievable. Do these human beings really exist? That's where I was a few years ago. And what basically happened over the last couple of years for me, so a little bit about me. So I call myself a reforming human being. If anybody follows me on LinkedIn, you'll see my title. has changed probably every 72 hours for about the last 2 years, because I've still been trying to figure out who the hell I am and what the hell I'm here to do, to be honest. And I'm sort of, it's quite ironic that I'm sort of finally comfortable with the fact I'm a reforming human being. I don't know everything. I've got pretty much no idea. I quite enjoy not knowing. And I just sort of take each day as it comes, grounded in that matter of fact. And the thing is, the community of Humans First actually allows every single person to practice that vulnerability, because none of us have got it figured out. None of us really know what we're doing. If we're honest, day to day, we're doing our best guess. And the community of Humans First, I am so sorry if you can hear my mobile phone. It's something that's really touched my heart for over 2 years now, because the community role models what we desperately need in every work organization: vulnerability, humility, listening, care. And I remember Vivian Aqua, who's a regular part of the community, and she has her own Let's Humanize the Workplace community. She used this phrase, Michael, several months ago, and I think it sums up Humans First and the people that show up to it. If we ran organizations in the same way that Humans First operates, we would not have the problems that we have in the world. Like, period. Why? Because Humans First is a self-organized movement. Nobody's being paid. People are contributing massively through their gifts, through their energy, through their network. They're inviting people from their own network. So where in the workplace does that happen? Where they go, hey, oh, by the way, why don't you come and work here? Because the people are amazing. They care about each other. They want to make a difference in the world bigger than themselves. Like, who talks like that in the workplace? I know that people think like that in the workplace, because I'm one of them. I still work in a 3 billion turnover corporate. However, we don't have that conversation. What does it mean to care for each other? What does it mean to make sure that the people we work with go home happy to their spouses, to their children? Like, we're not talking about that. We're still talking about money. And the irony for me about Humans First, it's the one thing that we don't talk about. Yet everyone's making such a difference through Humans First. So it's just this beautiful oxymoron in Humans First. Mike's been amazing at how he holds space. Toni took over from me with the EMEA lead a year ago, and she's doing an incredible job with her fairy dust. And now we've got Deborah heavily involved. So I'll just leave it there by saying, Michael, my life has changed for the better by being part of this community. And I really want people who are watching us now to realize this is not a community of, what's the best way to put it? It's not all about groupthink. Yes, people do get each other. It is about connection. It is about love. It is about listening. It is about vulnerability. But as Toni said, it's then about what do you do with that when you go outside of the community, into your home life, into your work life. So my invitation is get involved. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it will cost you in terms of your love and investment, in terms of how you show up. And you will get that paid back many, many times. So, yeah. Anyway, there's my little ramble, Michael. I'm going to shut up now because I could go on for ages.
Can I jump on that for a second, Michael, if I may? Just because Gary has not only been a great friend, but a guide and support through all of this. When we started spending time together, and we were planning the first Live London event, and we got together and we met for the first time. There's a room full of people, and the expression that came out of that evening together was pretty magical, and that helped drive a lot of the interest in the community and participation. And what we've been able to do together is use that platform to let others step onto the stage and into the mic and be part of bring who they are. Yes, it's about what you do, because that's important, but mostly we're going to focus on who you are as individuals. And we realize we're all on a growth journey if we're willing to open that door. And Gary's just been a great guide, not only for the community, but for me. We've had many conversations and shared stories and laughter and talked about expansive things and made fun of each other, all in the, sometimes in the same call, in the same moment. And you had asked a little bit about the September event coming up, and we had this set up for May of 2019. And then, the world shut down on everybody. And so it got canceled. It got moved back to let's be optimistic and say we can do it in October of 2019 and or 2020. What year are we in? 2020. We can't do that, and now we're flipping the calendar again. And Gary's been, really attentive and tenacious to get this group together. And what we're going to do is something extremely unique, and that is we're going to have a no speaker event. We're going to have an event where everybody gets in as equals, and we're going to collaborate. We're going to put the big issues on the table. The groups are going to self-organize and self-direct, and I'm just so excited for that. I think a very unique experience where everybody comes in as the expert and nobody is the expert. And we just get a chance to open dialogue, learn, capture together. And I think there's going to be some, brilliant mastermind work that comes out of those 2 days.
It seems magical, right? And when you bring people into a safe space and you allow them to be their genuine, authentic selves and bring them to the table, it creates this energy about them that is so genuine and authentic and just true to themselves that when you bring it into a room of others all doing the same, the way that the energy magnifies around the whole table, it becomes this platform of open discussion, right? And it can create these solutions that one can never think of on their own, right? Because yes, one person can make an impact, but when there's a group of people coming together for like-minded reasons and everybody brings their own perspective, then you get a solution that can work across perspectives, across circumstances, situations, and all those things. And
I love that. And we stay away
magical
from that. Hey, I think you frame it so well. And we stay away from that prescriptive authority, right? We're not trying to find the one way that will work for everybody across the globe. We're finding the many, many paths forward. And that's why it's such a joy, with Deborah in Switzerland and the great work she's doing and taking her experiences and her ideals for elevating communities of people and leaders, and it invites in all of those unique solutions. Those are the things we want highlighted is the many choices of a better way to fix the thing that's broken. And so when Deborah steps in and she brings her goodness, it just re-energizes all of us and helps things expand. That was a cue in, Deborah.
And Deborah, Deborah, this is the quietest I've ever heard you.
Straight in.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling immense gratitude to be here. I'm really very grateful to be here with all of you wondrous people. I was thinking, who did I meet first? I met Gary first, slightly accidentally, and perhaps not. Do coincidences exist? I don't know. And then, so after meeting Gary a couple of times when he came over to Switzerland, so obviously before lockdown, then I met Toni, and then I met the two Mikes. And, I'm thinking of May. We're already in May. We're in the 5th month of 2021. And I have to say that the introduction and the connections of Humans First has been probably one of the biggest gifts that I've had so far this year. And just listening to you all, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Mike and a big thank you to Toni, because you set this tone where it's a space for healing. And, Mike, you were saying earlier about how people are hurting in organizations, massively hurting. And for me, I've been feeling the sense of urgency, but I never really did anything like really so much about it. And we were talking about walking the talk, and we're talking about bringing yourself into the conversations. That's huge in itself. And I was actually talking just yesterday on a podcast yesterday about how people gloss over their words. And in Humans First, we don't gloss over our words. And bringing ourselves, bringing yourself is a huge thing, because it means reconnecting with ourselves. And we've been so, going back to organizations and people that are hurting, there's so much disconnect, there's dis-ease, there's distress. And with all that, there is, for me, there's a huge sense of urgency to break these patterns and this hardwiring of doing things. And I think Humans First is a beautiful place where we can do that. Should I continue? I know I can manage by Gary, so I'm self-managing here.
I don't think you need to self-manage, Deb. I think you should just run with it a little bit.
So
Go ahead, Deb.
yeah. No, I'm saying that from my own personal experience. I'm also a recoverer, similar to Gary, from burnout, and I can also say concussion, spiritual concussion, if you like. And I brought in leading dragons, and people ask me why dragon, because the dragon is the symbol of the spirit, and we've been so disconnected from our collective spirit and our individual spirit, and we all have it. We can call it the heart. There are lots of different ways that we can call it, but it's reconnecting with ourselves. And my core value is one of the three is growth. And what's stopping us from growing is fear, and all the fear-driven behaviors, all the fear, and the beliefs, fear of being criticized, fear of being rejected, fear of being judged, fear, all these things that stifle us. But and we cannot walk the talk until we actually are able to harness our own fear and go, you know what, I actually want to move into a higher vibrational space. And I want to move away from the survival mode, survival mechanism. And you know what? Okay, we're not machines. We're human beings. They're not human doings. Sorry, that's my motto. Somebody told me that once, and I think it's beautiful. We are human beings. We're not human doings. And so I accompany leaders, team heads, department heads, and small organizations into, enabling them and their teams to be better in order to do better. So that's in a nutshell.
For me, like, I look at everybody's different experience, right? Everybody brings something different to the table. And that's what's beautiful about what Mike has created, right? Because it welcomes everyone. I mean, if you look at me, I've worked for the hardest boss in the world for the last 14 years. That's myself. Right? Like, I can't work for corporate because I'm just a rebel of all kinds. So I need to work for myself because I still don't like answering to myself. So, I mean, I still have, power struggles within. But on my journey through this, I've built companies internationally. I've had offices in over 20 countries. I've done government contracts in over 30 countries. I've worked with the UN. I've done these amazing things as an individual with my teams that I've built from scratch. And I've always operated that way, to where everybody manages themselves. There's no micromanagement, because I don't have enough time in a day to do that. I'm too busy trying to manage myself. Right. And when I look at organizations like this, groups or people like me are welcome into this also, that don't come from that corporate background. I could never succeed in corporate. One, I don't like dressing up, so that just won't happen. Like, if it's anything above what I'm wearing today, which is basketball shorts and a t-shirt, I'm in trouble. I'll do it from time to time, but usually it's for family court or other reasons. But it comes down to, I'm comfortable in my own skin today, and I've done a lot of work to get there. And I've spent a lot of time helping others get there, and helping other companies and helping other individuals build their company to get there for themselves. And every time I speak to anybody, I'm always introducing them to somebody from Humans First, because I love what it stands for and what it's true to be, and how it's welcoming of everyone. Because the background doesn't matter, because the conversations are still the same. The geographical location, I was speaking to Andreas from Greece, I believe is it Greece? Is he in Greece or Italy? Greece, I think, the other day. And his experience, Germany, I'm sorry, he's in Germany. It was a G. But, like, his experiences in the corporate are the same as everyone else's everywhere else. and he's reaching the same, ceilings and glass ceilings and issues and bureaucracy and red tape and lack of support for employees that they reach everywhere else. And it's an open forum for people to discuss how to overcome those issues and how to open these channels of communication and, with empathy within a organization and making their employees first so that they can thrive. Because when the money goes to the employees, the bottom line increases naturally. Because when people are happy, we're going to produce them, and it's sometimes opposite thinking if you're a financial person or a numbers person. But when you put more into your team's going to outproduce anything from the past, and it's a human issue. It's not a corporate issue because corporations are run by humans. They're just running in an old mentality of hierarchy rather than running in a mentality of let's all be in this together, right? And I guess that goes back to your book, right, Mike? It's a believership and, being able to do these things and lift everyone up to a level to where they want to thrive for the good of everyone else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that in. I mean, I think humans first is, for me, I don't know how to separate humans first and believership, right? Because they live together. Humans first is our activity around that model of believership, and it's about willful commitment. Given the opportunity, people will amaze us, and what we can invite them into is to understand where we're going and then willfully commit. And instead of being told what to do and then setting a standard of sameness and measuring everybody against that standard of sameness, right? So I pick Gary. Gary, you get to run a 4-minute mile this week. Congratulations. But, Toni, you can't. We have a different plan for you. You're going to run a 4.5-minute mile. And Deborah, you're going to be 5 because that's how we've scored you and that's where we slotted you. Nobody can perform outrageously and become their best. And I don't know how we got there. I think it's that simple is, Deborah, what excites you? What's going to help you get there? And then we're going to support you, just amazing us. And you're going to go do more than we could command you to do because it's coming from inside of you. And I think Toni has brought that out. You mentioned Andreas, right? Andreas joined us one day and Toni recognized one of the brilliant things he shared during that interaction. And she reached out and she said, wow, you made an impact. And then all of a sudden he wanted to contribute more. And he's become a big part of the community. You mentioned Andrea Sanchez. And, Andrea's just become such a great friend and ambassador and advocate for all we're doing. And I'm going to tell us, Andrea, I'm going to ask when you listen to this that you forgive me. But, she wrote me a note one day and she goes, Mike, I wanted you to know humans first and this experience we've had together. It has given me the courage to do all that I'm doing now. And she said, every time I run one of the Worthy conferences, I have my Humans First t-shirt on underneath what I'm wearing at the conference because I know it's close to my heart and it's given me confidence to bring everybody into these conversations. And, I just start bawling, right? The possible impact that's so beyond what I could ever envision because it's coming from Gary's vision. It's coming from Toni's vision. It's coming from Deborah's vision. Michael, how you lift people up in this platform and the work you're doing as a consultant. It's just inviting people to the table and, come as you are kind of thing.
Yeah. Can I just come in there? I think that it's so valuable what you said, Mike, and there are so many positive stories of individuals that, have shone in one way or another. And I'm just absolutely amazed week on week by that. But I just wanted to kind of just pick up on what Mike was saying about what's good, Gary's 4-minute mile, mine 4.5-minute mile, Deborah's 5-minute mile. Everybody's different. And I think that when it comes to the leadership piece and the DEI piece, we just those initials, those acronyms, they just roll off our tongues. Do we actually know what they mean? What Mike has just described is the equity piece. that you know, we so take it for granted, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but actually it's about the translation and what does that actually play out and look like. And Humans First is actually not just using the words, using the acronyms, but actually doing the doing. And it's about people seeing that that translation is rolling out into positive action, and we are doing it. So I just wanted to pick up on that, Mike, because that is clearly what you described, the equity piece, which sometimes we use that word, but do we know what it actually means and what it looks like? So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
I'd just like to bounce off the back of what Toni just said about that, because it's like what is so it's that inability in organizations to embrace diversity. We're not quite sure. We're a bit like, oh, you're a bit different. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to benchmark everything, all right? Because then at least we know where we're going. And it's that sense, that need to control, that top-down power and control, old-fashioned and paradigms. Are they still valid for today? Does it depend on sectors and industries? I'm just throwing it out there, but I think, and going back to what Toni was saying, I really do believe that we are unequipped. We're not quite sure. We're hardwired for one sameness, like Mike said, sameness. You know, starting at kindergarten, and so bringing ourselves to Humans First and bringing ourselves into organisations, it's a huge unwiring. And it takes a lot of support around us, and that's why I think Humans First is so powerful and so needed and so relevant. And it's just gaining traction because people are saying, I've had enough. I want to be me. I want to discover myself.
Well, and again, right, as long as I don't have to run a mile, you guys can run whatever times you want. So, but, you know, that's only a piece of this, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, like what Toni said is so important because that's equity at its finest, right? That's everybody coming to the table and having a voice. Everybody having something, everybody having an equal share of what they're participating. You know, it's kind of like that startup mode where, you know, you hear about the janitors at Google being millionaires. Well, it's because they had equity from day one, right? They came in, they were the team, right? And you hear it in startups because in a startup mode, you need every piece to function at its best operating capacity, and you need the best out of each individual part to become whatever the best can be. But when corporations hit this level, they kind of lose that fight, right? They lose that everybody to be their best because they hit this plateau that they think. And now it's about being a Fortune 100, Fortune 50, Fortune 10, Fortune 1000 company even is enormous on a global scale, right? So when they hit these points, they get very comfortable, you know, and we see it all the time. We've seen it cyclically. You can watch GE, what they've gone through in the last 30 years versus where they were 75 years ago. We could watch, you know, what Microsoft went through before and then the CEO took over. I can't remember his name for me. Indian gentleman, horrible. The way that he brought innovation to the company and they shifted. Yes, right. And he people, right? It came back to people again. Didn't matter that they had a million employees. You know, when you start innovating and giving people their true nature of curiosity, like Gary and I were talking about yesterday, when you bring the curiosity back, you bring the innovation back, you bring the ingenuity, looking to be better, bring voice and opportunity increased what the company is going to do every day of the week. You know, you've already brought so much more to the table. And where Humans First comes in is it gives everybody a seat at the table to talk about these topics. You know, and it doesn't mean that when you go back to your corporation after having these conversations, the corporation's going to want to hear about it. But what it does mean is when you're ready to move on from that corporation, I guess my internet is really bad and I do apologize. I'm in the middle of nowhere, so it does happen very regularly lately. But what it does mean is when you're ready to move on to your next role, you're going to find a role that is more suiting for you and where you want to be than where the stagnation you just came from is. And that's how evolution occurs in the workplace, in my mind, at this point.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like bringing in the word permission, right? We've been taught to, get permission to do whatever, to bring our whole selves, to be emotional in settings that, are rigid, to break the mold and the stereotypes of behavior, and open up and have conversations, to actually build depth to relationships, right? And when people feel they have permission to simply be themselves and understand that you are brilliant as you are. Now, what would you like to do with that? And feel supported in that. Then it's amazing the stories that come from that. And I believed that to be true from the experiences I had from people that were on my teams and going through some of that and then going back and doing a deep 360 and understanding what their experiences were. So I knew it existed, but nowhere near to the extent that, all of my friends here have exhibited. There's proof points that this is a very different way to help people find their brilliance, to find their purpose, to be fully empowered, to continue to learn. And like me or like everybody else, just be the broken, flawed individual you are, come in and, give it your best shot. That people will laugh at you and with you, but in the end, forgive you and invite you back to the party.
Can I jump in there, Michael, briefly? And Mike, I just want to emphasize a point here, which is really, really important. We've been so myopically focused for so long on technology, exponential technology, digitalization, the next platform, and that's all important. However, who's designing the tech? Who's designing the platform? So what we're actually at the edge of, which a lot of people don't realize, but what Humans First is helping activate, is exponential humanity. There is so much untapped. We're at the start of our Moore's Law curve for humanity. We're literally about to go bang. But so many of us don't realize that. And guess what, Mike Vacanti? Yes, we need to create safe spaces, brave spaces, but we need to give ourselves permission to show up fully. So yes, we need to support each other with those spaces, but we need to do the work. Back to your point, Michael, that we spoke about. We need to go inside. The outside world will not change without going inside first. And Humans First creates this incredible opportunity to do that. So I just wanted to add that as well, because I think we get so locked behind the technology and the latest buzzword, but like we are at the edge of exponential humanity curve. And I think we can get really excited about jumping on that, or we can stay at the bottom and it'll be really, really boring. So anyway, I wanted to chuck that in as well.
And love is the currency. Love and heart is the currency. So yeah. I used to say in organizations that I used to manage, don't worry too much on the KPIs. Just concentrate on the smiles. Get the smiles going, count the smiles, because then the KPIs will take care of itself. And I found that the more effort I put into creating happiness for the staff, or I know that they're responsible for their own happiness, but, just putting them in a space where I was supporting them, they felt comfortable, psychologically safe, then the more I found that the more I was getting out of them and the better that was. And I thought, oh, this is absolutely great. But my thing really is, and what I'm trying to bring to this is, about 13 years ago when my father died, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer and he was on his deathbed with just months to go. And I turned to him, and we used to have lots of conversations. And I turned to him one day and I said, Dad, I know that you've got your will, but what is it that you want? What can I do for you in this time? And he said to me, I don't want anything. I just want to know that you are okay and everybody's okay, and then I will be okay. And I thought that is so courageous of somebody that's on their deathbed, that if he can do that on his deathbed, then I can do that while I'm alive, because actually when it was his funeral and everything, there was all these people that were coming out and saying all these stories, and I was like, and more stories, and they were showing all of this goodness that he brought to them. And I already had my father in such high esteem, but I just thought, well, actually, it wasn't only my father, he was an actual legend. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say that because I'm biased anyway, but it made me realize that all he done was do good. And if that's the impact of doing good, then I want to carry on that legacy, you know, and it actually feels good to do good. So that's kind of my story and where that comes from. And the more good I do, the more good I see in others. And when I see leaders holding on and clutching hold of power and this ego-driven thing, I just think that actually, do you know what? If you let go of the ego, if you let go of the power and use that power and share it out and empower others with that power, you become yourself more powerful. The more you give it away, the more it comes back in droves. And it's the same thing with money. You chase value, you chase outcomes, happiness, and then the money chases you. And the more that I do that, the more I've realized that the better it is. And it's such an amazing feeling to bring happiness and joy to people and value, that's good enough for me. And so I'm living in my father's legacy as well. And that's what I'm bringing to Humans First. So I just wanted to throw that in as well, because I thought it was really important. It's something that's important to me.
Toni,
and I think, yep. Go ahead, Debs. It's your show,
yeah.
Debs. Run it. Go ahead.
No, I've got to, unfortunately, I've got to run in a minute. I want to say to Toni, you're doing such, you know, your dust is everywhere, you're sprinkling it everywhere, and you're right there in your legacy. You're doing what you want to do. And I just would like to leave you with the definition of the word power. And I learned what it really meant last year. And for me, last year, recovering from my burnout. And power is the ability to define. So power is the ability to define, which means that when we give our power away, or when we allow others to prescribe things for us, we are not stepping into our power. And I feel that Humans First is a wonderful platform which is enabling all of us to reclaim our power, because we have given it a bit away, a bit over to our parents, a bit over to our siblings, perhaps to our spouses, perhaps to our children, perhaps to our colleagues, our neighbors. And it's like, well, you know, this doesn't mean that you cannot be kind. It doesn't mean that you can't be tolerant. And you can do that. But stepping fully into our power is reclaiming fully our power, and then empowering others. It's by doing the same and allowing them. So we're not defining them, but we are inviting them to define themselves. Thank you so much, both Michaels. Gary, it was lovely to see you. Toni, as always. I'm sorry I've got to love you and leave you.
Thanks, Debs.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And I will also be leaving you, Michael. So can I be leaving you some parting things? Given with fairy dust, of course. I would absolutely love to be able to, I would love to be able to take this opportunity to, one, say thank you so much to Mike Vacanti. It's a beautiful community that you've created here, and I just want it to continue to flourish. Thank you to Gary Turner, who it's all your fault, and it will always be your fault, because he was the one that said, turn up on this call and it will all be okay. And sometimes when somebody says something to you and you respect them, you don't ask any more questions, you just do it. Yeah, and it was okay. So thank you, because that was the start, and you passed the baton over to me. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it on to somebody else, and that baton will hopefully keep moving. We've got 20 ambassadors now, and that ambassadorship is growing. So it's growing globally. They are scattered across the globe, and so it is a growing community, and we welcome others to be a part of that community. We have a variety of calls across the globe, Mondays, We have the EMEA call at 12 o'clock. Thursdays, we have 2 calls. And Friday, we have another call. The website is humansfirst.club. And we have a book. So there's lots of ads here. We've got a book called You Belong Here. And there are contributions from 33 fabulous people that have been a part of this amazing community. I am going to shout out my chapter, which is about my heart being rich. And that's about richness in knowledge that you get from the community. I'm going to tell you about the retreat that's in September 7th and 8th, continuing this experiment. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. Gary has put the link in the chat for you. Do check it out and have a look. And we've got the fabulous Andrea and Maxine, who are our ambassadors, who are leading Clubhouse discussions every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. So there's a lot of things going on, and there's space for everybody to be a part of it. And on that note, Michael, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you, Mike and Gary, and lots of love. See you soon. See you at the next event.
Thank you, Toni.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate it. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Michael, I saw that there was a question from Dorothy Ann in the and it's a brilliant question, right?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question.
Yeah, and it gets asked often, and there's this notion of who are we waiting for, right? So the reason it's such a fabulous question is it's the most common experience, and is we aren't allowed to operate this way in the environment that we work. And I'm really looking forward to Gary weighing in on this also, because he's actively in that situation. He's becoming the catalyst to punch through that and make it available in his organization. But I do believe this is, we can't wait for others, because by the time a manager or a leader or an executive or a CEO has some personal epiphany that, oh my gosh, those are human beings that I'm paying paychecks to, and I need to care more about them. That's a personal epiphany that may or may not happen. The likelihood is low. The thing that we can do, however, is embrace this environment and bring it into those closest to us. So we can affect this within the circle that we operate the most. We're going to have the greatest influence in those people that we spend the most time with. And that's where it can start. The person you sit next to, the team that you're with in a meeting, that's really where it starts. And then it works throughout the organization. We get a pod here and a pod here, and eventually it starts to spread, which is much more effective than waiting for someone at the top to have a personal epiphany and do the Bob Chapman kind of. He had a personal epiphany at an employee's wedding, just like, oh my gosh, these are real people that are getting married and doing things. They have lives, and he changed the way he operated his business because of that. We don't have to wait for that moment. We can hopefully embrace this and take it into every conversation that we have the opportunity during the day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 1,000,000%, and I'll share my story after Gary talks, but I agree with you. I think that each person has their own personal responsibility for where they're at, right, and how they impact those around them. And I can share a little story about that, but Gary, why don't you run with this one for a little bit, because this is a very deep, important question that people need to understand.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thanks, Mike, as well for the setup. So yeah, I work within a $3.5 billion turnover corporate. I look after, what a lot of people don't know is I look after over 20 million worth of sales in what is traditionally an extractive industry. It's chemicals. So I'm here today speaking as Gary Turner. not on behalf of the organization. And we still have to say that as a disclaimer in 2021, because that's the system we still exist within. You can't be a representative of an organization as a human being. You have to be a representative as part of the old dying machine. And I've got a great company and I'm paid well and I love a lot of the people I work with. So there's nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about the system. And the problem is the system won't change while we're waiting for God, whoever we view that person to be, non-binary, female, male, however they identify. Waiting for that person to go, hey, we're ready. It can be a bloody long wait. So what I've been doing over the last 4 years, and particularly because of Humans First in the last 2 years, I've been building my own tribe, both within the community and outside. So I now have, Michael, if I look at my network, it was probably 2,500 people 4 years ago. Today it's nearly 6,000. Okay, it's just a number. But the point is that extra 150% is quality. I can pick up the phone to most of those. Like, it's incredible. What that's meant then is that I have then got more and more comfortable in my own skin and gone, hey, I'm doing the job I'm paid to do within the workplace. Some people get it, some people don't. But all I can do is be me and show up as me. That's all I can do. And if that has a positive ripple within my immediate team or wider, brilliant. If it doesn't, that's also okay. But what I will not do anymore is wait for some other hero to be the person that I think they should be when I'm the one that should be bloody getting in the arena. And I think that's the biggest challenge to every one of us, is are we prepared to get in the arena ourselves in our own small way or in a massive way? Or are we just going to wait for somebody else? Because if we wait for someone else, we're going to have a long time waiting. And I say that as well, Michael, as a white guy as well. Like, there's a lot of injustice in the world, and I've got a responsibility as Gary Turner to be in the arena because I've got way less barriers than many other people. So there's a lot underneath this, which I won't go into now, so I want to hear your story, Michael. But thanks for the invitation to share a bit more. That's a little bit more about my journey.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that, right, Gary? Because you're in a very established large corporation and you can only play your role, right? But you can play your role and that's your choice, right? And you choose how you play your role. As a human being, you get to choose how you live your life. As a corporate employee, what you bring from your human self into your employee role. So everybody has that response. When I first got sober 15 years ago, about approximately, it was June 2006. Shortly after I got sober, I started working at a large private college, which we sold education online, and there was a whole bunch of issues, but that's besides the point. When I first started there, it was literally 500 employees in one building, and there was 7 buildings nationally, and there was thousands and thousands of employees, thousands of students. And me just being myself, right? Just starting at the bottom, getting in there as an employee, just getting clean and sober, having no clue who I really even was at that point. I just started helping people, right? And I hit my numbers, I got my numbers, but the minute that somebody else was in trouble, the minute that somebody needed somebody, I was the go-to person. Within 3 months, I went from go-to person to being this assistant manager figure. From that, I went into a management program. From that, I went into the whole building would come to me when they needed anything, including the executive director of the building, whose brother was a VP or a vice president or a started getting calls from other of their buildings when they were having problems. You know, your role, being a leader, is not a title, right? We all are leaders based on what we bring to the table. We have our innate responsibility as a human being to bring our best selves to the table. You know, we're 3 white males sitting on a screen. It's, you know, there's lots of topics that we probably shouldn't discuss. There's many topics I definitely shouldn't discuss on a daily basis that I do live all the time. Because you know what? I have a voice and opinion that matters also, right? And I will speak about justices. I will speak about not understanding it because I'm a 41-year-old white male in America and have it better than 97% of the planet. right? Even if it's a month that I don't get paid, even if it's a month that I don't know how I'm covering rent, even if my bills are scraping by, I still have it better than 97% of the world, because I have to worry about going for a jog, not that I ever would, so let's not pretend, and get shot, right? Or I don't have to worry about, walking through a grocery store and being targeted for something. This isn't the world that I personally live in. But I can tell you from growing up with friends and having people that did have those targets on their back and what they went through and what I went through by spending time with them and observing and watching, I will always stand up for that. I will always stand against those injustices, and I always have. I've walked away from jobs because of injustices to others. I don't care. Money doesn't matter that much to me because it's one thing I know how to make easier and faster than anything else in this world. I've been worth millions of dollars 3 times in my life and homeless 5 times. 2 of the homeless times, one was a house fire where I lost everything, and now it's way outside of my control and I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere. So, when that time period's over, I technically won't be homeless anymore. But I've been through it all. I've been through the ups and downs. I've, had my near-death experiences. I've had my spiritual awakenings. I've been there for people on every level globally that I can. I help people all day long around the world. And being a leader has nothing to do with a title. I can name myself CEO of any of the companies I work with or want to work in. That's not my choice. It's not what I want. I don't want the day-to-day responsibility. It's not who I am. My greatest inspiration, my greatest legacy is bringing those people together so that they can carry forward their purpose in the best way possible. This is about being a leader, is bringing yourself to the table in the most authentic, genuine way to inspire and empower others to be their best selves and to eradicate the injustices and bring equality, bring equity, give everybody a voice, amplify their voices, and make sure that everybody's getting heard. So, Dorothy, is there a way that you can bring humanity to the workplace no matter who's running your company? Yes. And if at some point they start fighting you back, then you're at the wrong company. And it is that simple. Because at some point, money is not worth losing your humanity. It's just not. There's money out there in other areas and industries and things that maybe you've never related your skills to that can fit you 1,000,000 times better, that maybe give you more fulfillment and happiness, that you're able to inspire and help others be self-inspired. Because the last thing you need to do is inspire people to just want to follow you to be inspired. You want to inspire them to be inspired by themselves.
Yeah.
You want to give them the strength and the power so that they can lift themselves up. Because that's how the ripple effects gets created. That's how it carries forward. You don't want to be the person that has to carry everyone. You want to be the person that creates other people to carry other people.
Yeah.
But it's another one of my tangents.
No, I mean, but it's so relevant. I don't think it's a tangent at all. I feel that was much more of an elaboration, Michael, and a fitting one. And I touch on it in the book a little bit. It's amazing how we go along the journey and we'll sacrifice pieces of ourselves, our own value systems, our own beliefs, to hold on to something that in the end may not even be worth having. The position we have, the paycheck we have, being part of a company that we don't share values and beliefs with. And I think we look at people progress through their career, and it's almost like with each promotion, it's like passing through a toll booth, right? And the fee we have to pay, or the toll we have to pay, is a little bit of our humanity, a little bit of our care and values, personal values and beliefs, because we acquiesce along the way to get into a position of authority. And then we think of that position of authority being a leader. And I think that's what you've done such a beautiful job dispelling, is leadership isn't the authority. Leadership is the person in the room that everybody looks to while the authority is talking, right? We've all been in those meetings, right? And you're sitting around the table and the boss is talking and everybody's kind of, like this and very straight and holding it all in. And then if they hear something that doesn't resonate, all eyes kind of turn to someone else in the room to see how they're sensing it, right? that person all the eyes went to, that's the leader in the room, not the authority. And it becomes very obvious. And I think what Gary Turner has done so brilliantly, to elaborate on that story a little bit, is he has brought in those conversations. So he's sought out people in the organization without waiting for, not taking it necessarily as a responsibility, not looking for, but using it as an opportunity, not waiting for an invitation, but going out and seeking those others and say, have we explored bringing this experiment into our group, having conversations we're not used to having? And I think Gary's been able to model that within a corporate organization where there are pockets saying, let's explore that more. And he's opened up doors within different departments, and they want a little bit more of that. Let's understand more. Let's experiment with that. And I think that it's a brilliant example of how we can start where we are and help move everybody forward. At least find the parameters, right? Let's at least go explore the barriers rather than just assuming they exist.
And what's funny is, it's like you said, right? There's always that person in the room that's not typically management or considered the one running it, but there's that person that influences the rest of the team, right? And sometimes it's the secretary of the boss. Sometimes it's, it's the true influencer of the new people, because they have this fire and passion about them, which is how they get their new employees to have that, right? Sometimes it's the HR person, or people like that. It all depends in the organization, right? Because everybody has these roles, and then you have the ones that just shine in their role, and you have the ones that lead by just living themselves, right? Because they know what's going on. They listen to everything. They pay attention to what the real noise is, not what the real sounds, not noise. They're able to see what the real pattern behaviors are. I mean, I've sales, I've created large global infrastructure, done all crazy crap that I've done for this high school dropout that couldn't even survive high school, right? And all the crazy things that I've accomplished, like meeting government officials through LinkedIn and then flying to their country and signing government contracts. Like, these are things for a high school dropout that, most people would never believe, right? But it's who I am. I reach out to people. I build people. I build relationships. I bring value. And we all do that, but we don't give ourselves the credit. We don't value ourselves enough. And it's like Gary and I said yesterday during our conversation, again, I'll keep going back to it. We've got to do the work on ourselves. We've got to believe in ourselves. We've got to find that passion within, find our core values, live into our core values. And you know what? Sometimes that does mean doing your job. Because if the company you're working for doesn't align with your passion, it doesn't align with your core values, then how could you ever be that leader or that inspirer? How could you ever be that person if you don't believe in what you're doing or who you are? And a lot of it has to do with that work. And nobody wants to do work. Nobody wants to go through I call it the shit, but I mean, I'm a little bit less, professional than most. I'm just more blunt. But like, nobody wants to go through their darkness. Nobody wants to go through their pain and actually deal with it. But if we all focused on ourselves on that,
that self-belief's so big, Michael. I mean, and I love the way you say go through it, right? Because it's getting deep into the mud, right? The idea is to get through it, not stay there, right? And I think that's where a lot of coaching actually falls down. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in that pond too, and we'll just sit in the muck together. And it's like, no, the best story is the one that got through it, right? That's what we need. But that self-belief, that brings us to the point that we truly can invite in other perspectives, and the richness of everyone else's experiences and their perspectives. That's where we start to grow. That's where we see people, step into their true opportunity. They find their great strength. it's when they know their perspective matters, that it's, it's not being measured against a single ideal. But we can't even invite that in until we've kind of done the inner work.
Yeah. And the inner work is not always fun. it's just not.
Michael, can I just build on that? Because I think I really want to just hold space for a second for anybody that's watching this conversation. What Mike Vacanti just said, it's so critically important to emphasize, because the three of us have gone through it. We'll continue to go through it. None of us is the finished article. But again, I want to hold that space for that moment. Like, nothing changes. Nothing in your world on the outside will change until you're first gone inside. As long as you believe, as long as we believe that we are lacking something, money, sex, power, happiness, empowerment, we're always going to suppress something else out there, whether it be a human being, whether it be a colleague, whether it be some other form of dysfunction. If we do not feel whole and complete and enough in here, we will still be staring at these injustices in the next 400 years. We have to go inside. And Humans First is a great example of a safe, brave space to be able to go inside without fear. So I really wanted to hold that. It's a really important tension. Like, we're not having a fluffy conversation here. Everyone's talking at the moment. We've got to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. No. This is really uncomfortable work. This is really uncomfortable. And that's why you need a brave space to go and do the work. And that's what Humans First is. I just wanted to hold that space. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? Like, I do that on a personal level with people all the time, and I hate the word coach. I don't like the word coach. To me, it's a guide, right? I'm not there to coach them on how to live their life. I'm not there to coach them on how to stay in their own shit. I don't play games. I don't want to have a paying client for the next 20 years of my life. I want somebody, who wants to do the work, that I can show them how I did it and what worked for me, and then allow them to move on with their life and live their life, and I've created this network globally of people that are doing the work and want to do the work, and that are actively creating this global bond between them, that they're all doing work together and they're all evolving together and, going through their own spiritual journeys and their life journeys and lifting each other up and embracing each other on their soul levels, and really seeing past the crap, seeing past the surface stuff, because everybody has their own, crap. Everybody has their own circumstances, and, we've got to get to the core of this, which is our individual perspectives and being able to look at our situation objectively. When we can finally get to a point in our own lives that we can look at our circumstances objectively, right? I've been trapped 1,200 miles from home for 15 months, fighting for custody of my 3 children that were abused horribly by their mother, with physical evidence. And because of COVID and a horrible judicial system, I'm still stuck here, right? I've seen 2 people in the last 15 months from my family, friends, everything, during COVID, and really isolated and really stranded. And what did I do? I decided that I was going to work on myself and do the work that I never did, because I felt isolated and I felt that I needed to finally do it. I was put into a situation where I really didn't have a choice, right? So I was forced to heal from my childhood trauma because I needed to help my kids heal from their trauma that they just went through. But I'm a lot more stubborn than most. I had many opportunities in my life to work on it, and I chose not to. I was lucky enough to be sober almost 14 years and still never do the emotional work. I somehow white knuckled it the whole way, right? Just never wanted it. I had some pact with God or something that kept me sober. God only knows how, with everything I've been through. Between business partners stealing over $60 million from me, between losing houses, between cars, wife institutionalized, everything I've been through, house fires, everything that I've been through, somehow I stayed sober. All to get me to this point today where I finally did the work and now I can truly help others and inspire them to be self-inspired. But what Human First does is, on a business level, gives people that safe space to come together and share objective perspectives. And everyone listens, and I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it myself, and it is beautiful. At its core, it is perfection of a safe energy container for everybody to come in and participate and be able to share their perspective and then learn and grow from each other. To Mike and what he's created and what people have piggybacked.
Yeah, obviously those words like sit really heavy with me, right? And I think that, like, I'm the most unlikely character on the planet to have that happen to, but I don't think of it as much as creating as allowing. Like we just ran an experiment that gained momentum because it was different than what people had experienced elsewhere. And so they continually asked for more, and I just kept funding the live events, right? It was all self-funded. We would try to get enough people in the room at the right price to pay for the plane tickets and the hotels of those that flew in, and that was it. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't, but like I said, it was the most expensive and time consuming volunteer thing I've ever done, but there's been nothing in my life more rewarding because people came and shared their experiences, and they opened up to who they really were, and did it for the goodness of others. They did it to help the next person through. And I think just allowing something to take shape on its own and then just be the bodyguard of that energy, right? Is just don't let the walls close in, and don't let the expert come into the room and say, well, take all that now and package it up into the one thing that everybody can put in their pocket forever. That doesn't exist. We're still discovering and we're still creating.
And the key to what you're saying is it's the absence of control, right? Because we all want to control. It's in our natural instinct, our human ego, to try and control things, right? I want to create this and then control how it grows to protect it. But the reality is, what we don't realize is the minute we start to control it, we're already shrinking it down. We're already decreasing its ability, and from what you've done and your allowance of it has opened it up to the freedom and the possibilities of what every individual brings to the table.
Yeah, they bring
and
magic.
It doesn't mean that they do. Everybody has their own magic, and that's the beautiful part.
I think Gary's laughed at me many times. It's just like there's not a bigger idiot on the planet. It's a good thing it's you.
But that's the best part, right? Because all you have to do is be yourself. All any of us have to do is be ourselves. The minute that we have freedom to be ourselves, I talk with this shaman weekly, and he makes fun of himself that he's either the town idiot or the town alchemist. It depends how you look at him, right? But it's truth. It's 100% truth, because who cares what anybody thinks of you? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't even matter what we think of ourselves if we're just allowing ourselves to just be ourselves. And when you create what you've created and you have the ability to allow it, yes, there's people that are going to get involved that do control certain aspects because they want to see things happen in a specific way. But I've even watched you allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. And then it also filters back out again, right? Because you're not trying to control that part of it either. You're allowing people to come in and be their self or themselves. But that's the beauty of it, and that's the natural organic growth of it, because everybody learns something from that experience, and it doesn't have to be a controlled experiment. It's just an experiment.
Michael, I'd love to add to that, because you just used words organic and natural. That is so important, and I'll tell you why. So I've been spending a lot of time with one of our mutual friends from the community. She looks after the Humans First Asia, Samantha Sapaya. So I've been doing some work with her around regeneration. So beyond sustainability, so not just to sustain, but to regenerate, become life-giving. That is what this community represents. a regenerative energy flow, human to human to human to human. So it's not a cancerous growth like a lot of the systems that exist today, mergers and acquisition, like we have to get bigger, we have to make more money, we have to deliver more shareholder value. It's not sustainable. Humans first energy is regenerative. There is nothing about it that is negative. There's nothing about it that depletes. It's continuously serving itself, and it's getting bigger and more rich and more connected every single week. But none of that is cancerous. None of it is depleting any person involved in the process. And I don't think there's anything else on the planet that's doing that.
It's funny, as we're talking, I'm introducing both of you to the shaman. So you're forewarned. It has to be an hour conversation, so make an hour because it's worth your time, I promise you. He will not speak to anybody for less than an hour because he believes that the magic takes an hour to happen. So you've just got to deal with the hour. I'm doing the introduction on LinkedIn. It will change your world because he's changed mine in 6 months. My whole world is different. And the way that I now allow compared to how I used to, I'm not controlling how I allow. So it's really great. But it's true, the regeneration process and the way that when we hit that allowance level and we truly allow people to be themselves, it starts regenerating on its own. It starts naturally, organically regenerating. And me and him were actually talking about regeneration this morning on other projects that we're working on because we have tons of them globally. And there's so much magic in the world. We've just got to allow it to happen. And you guys have to speak to him first of all, but it's just again, it's going to change your life. It's just a magical experience. It's worth the hour. You never need to spend an hour with him ever again, but you have to spend the first hour.
Michael, this is Humans First. I had a chat with Mark 2 months ago through a connection in Humans First.
Really? That's so funny. That is funny. I talk to Mark weekly. Me and Mark talk weekly. We're working on many things together. Mike, have you ever spoken to Mark? No?
Off mute. Sorry. No, I have not. Okay. So thank you for the introduction. I'll look forward to it.
You will thoroughly enjoy the conversation. You have to fit around his schedule because he's a little stringent with his schedule. He has lots of relaxing time because he doesn't work too hard. But he, it's worth an hour of your life. It will change the way you look at everything, including yourself.
It's an interesting thing in that you bring up, and I just want to touch on that because someone knowing, like that's an example of what we were talking about, right? Like we're all different. We all work in different rhythms. And for somebody to know how they prepare to be present when they're required to be present is, that's part of that allowing, right? We get in, again, this orchestration, we get into environments and it's like, no, it's these hours and this is what we do. And these are the performance measures and, getting back again to that equity thing. And in reality, some people work in bursts. Some people work, methodically through a period of time, and allowing each person to kind of find their energy to be most present when it's required. Like it's game day, right? I mean, that's how athletes prepare to, for the big event. It's, you can't score a 10 on the gymnastics routine 100 times in a row. You have to prepare for that one great moment and bring it at that time. And, we have the opportunity to adopt some of those truths and bring them into all of our environments.
It's funny, right? When I first met Mark, I got upset with his schedule. I didn't like the fact that I had to fit into his schedule on his terms. Because as much as I wanted to say that I allowed, I wasn't very good at allowing. And as much as I wanted to believe that I was open-minded and allowed to be curious and allowed to feel my own magic even, I wasn't. And after months of making fun of me, I've learned so much. And it's it's the rhetoric back and forth and how we reflect each other and how we're mirrors for each other, and we see what we need to see during our conversations. Because we're both over analytical. We both have so many similarities. We both have global networks. We both build things. We both bring networks of infrastructure allowing, and we start out of our own way. Amazing. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it till I actually got to that point. How seamlessly everything falls in place. You know, it's not about chasing. It's not about fighting for. It's not about fighting against. It's truly just about being present and allowing ourselves to show. And the rest works itself out. You know, and I'm live all the time. And I talk about all different types of crazy topics because I've worked in 20 industries, and I've worked with governments, and I've worked with the janitors, and I've worked with all the different levels. And I sold illicit drugs for years, and I worked in the stock market, which might have been illegal at that point, the way that we did business. You know, I've done all these crazy things, right? And at the end of the day, it's just who I am, right? And it's what makes me who I am. And it's my story, and it's part of my journey and how I can relate to others. And, you know, I don't regret anything. I don't regret a single thing I've ever done because it's got me to where I am today. And I'm so appreciative and grateful for both of you being here and everybody that was here and being willing to have this conversation, because these conversations need to happen all the time. They really do. They need to happen more frequently.
Michael, it's beautiful and it's brilliant, and it's a privilege and a great joy to be here and in conversation with you in this forum, and then certainly being with friends is always, like, you know, it's fun, it's exciting. And you know, Gary has contributed so much to my life, and I know we're, you know, still taking steps and exploring what's ahead in that journey. And something you said about the, you know, the rigidity really resonates with me. Is Gary and I have had this conversation where we're taught along the way to get all the ducks in a row, right? Get everything in line, know exactly what that is. And I think sometimes it's okay just to let that thing be in its own orbit. That if we stop thinking so linearly and think dimensionally, that sometimes it's okay if the other planet is on its own orbit around the sun, and then we just understand, you know, our ride around the, you know, around the burning orb this year, and stop trying to control Saturn and Jupiter, and kind of just let them be for a moment, that they don't all have to be in a row. Let them line up when it's their time to line up.
Again, me and Mark talked about that this morning, about how time isn't even linear, right? And we went into that conversation a little bit today, and how most of what we're doing today has already happened. We're just now living the experience, right? And it's really ironic how everything, with the synchronicities of everything, how conversations happen, and you never expect them, but they just bring things to the table that you never foresaw. So I'm curious what comes next from all of this, because it's just getting started. And I'm here to help. I'm here to help however I can. However I can support, however I can help, I'm in. So I definitely want to thank both of you guys, and we're getting close to the end. And any final closing comments from either of you or both of you, or?
I'll go first, and Mike. I'll go first. Again, firstly, Michael, thank you so much for the invitation, for the conversation yesterday. Just full disclosure, Mike and I have been connected for about a year. In my crazy rabbit hole journey, totally forgot Michael's kind invitation to have a first conversation. We did it yesterday. It was incredible and off the charts. But we both said divine timing. It was the right time. So I want to say thank you to you, Michael. Brilliant conversation today. Mike, you know I love you, my friend. Great work you're doing. And I'm just going to leave a reflection, and I'm still working on this, but it's so important in the spirit of this conversation. You are enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Before everything. Black, brown, disabled, living alone, lots of money, no money. Like, it doesn't matter what the outside world looks like for you. Inside, you are enough. Please, please, please feel into that and build from the inside out from there. Like, that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you again, both. It's been amazing.
Thank you for being a friend and a guide and a mirror for me, Gary, because the energy has to come back. And that's one thing I've learned recently through this journey is I can get to a point where I've depleted myself without even being aware of it. And so that self-awareness, I think, I'm still learning how to do that properly. But the word I would want to share with everybody is certainly you're invited here. This is an open invitation, and it's like a tourist bus, right? It's hop on, hop off. You're always welcome, never obligated. And I think you'll get a chance to find others that can help you. And that's by inviting in all the perspectives. There's men and women from 20 years old to 70 years old, every race, every religion, from many different experiences all over the world. And I get to learn from that, right? I get to stretch myself. And I think what each person has felt is when they know they are valued, then their values matter. When they know they matter, they bring their ideas and expressions to the table very openly. And if we can just continue that energy source that we can all tap into to go out on our own and be the brilliant stars we're supposed to be, then we've accomplished something good that day. And I think it's still that simple.
What you both just mentioned is so powerful, right? First of all, everyone's enough within themselves. We're all enough, and we need to understand that and believe it. One of my missions in this world is to completely revamp the global education system to instill in children that they are enough, right? Because I don't feel like it does that. I feel like it tears us to shreds. I feel like it rips curiosity, it rips innovation, like Gary and I talked about yesterday again, right? It takes all those things away from us. And I truly believe that if children start understanding they are enough, the world starts changing immediately because it will filter upwards rather than down. The minute that kids start coming home knowing that they're enough, their parents will be forced to believe that they're enough, right? And this is where the world starts really changing. And as far as having an open invitation, it's very important for people to understand that they're invited and welcomed and wanted and will have a voice at the table, right? Because in so many aspects of our lives, we don't have that. Right? There's many tables I've sat at over the time that I didn't start out with a voice, that they gave me a voice because I earned it. The difference is you're giving a voice without earning it, just by participating. It's the open invitation and old hierarchies and old styles and old ways that keep that from naturally happening. But I do believe that is changing, and I do believe over the next decade it's changing even faster. Because I think for companies to survive, they're not going to have a choice. Because people are going to create their own companies. They're just going to go create their own. If companies don't change, they're going to go do it themselves. And they're going to do it in a better, faster, quicker way. Because a startup will be a conglomerate any day of the week, because a conglomerate has red tape and bureaucracy that they have to go through. A startup just goes and they just move into their passion. So I am beyond grateful for both of you. I'm grateful for the space that we shared, Toni and Deb's too. And for anyone who watched this earlier, or for anybody who watched this live, anybody who watches the replay, which I know that there will be a bunch of you that do, this is a very important conversation. It is worth listening to, and I appreciate your support tremendously. Have an amazing day, and thank you for joining us.
Cheers, Michael. Cheers, Mike.